Good evening and welcome to Dark Hour Paranormal. I am your host, Michael Roser. And tonight, folks, we have a very rare opportunity to explore a few subjects that we have seldom visited here on Dark Hour Paranormal. Folks, I have Lorilei Potvin in the house with us tonight. This woman is an absolute gem to this world, and I don't say that lightly, and I don't say that about everybody. Her energy is so big, so intense, so loving, so compassionate, empathetic, and she's a sensitive on top of that in regards to the information of the ethers and the esoterica that we all know and love. Folks, thank you very much for being here with us tonight. It is my pleasure to introduce to you those of you who are not familiar with Lorilei. And we're going to get started in just a moment. But before I do that, I'm going to read a quick bio on Lorilei, and we'll get going from there. So Lorilei is a psychic medium, crystal Reiki master, medical intuitive, energy healer, Akashic records practitioner, spiritual teacher, internet digital radio host, podcaster, YouTuber, and registered nurse. This woman also does it all, folks. I love it. She is well versed in the paranormal and has shared her and her family story with the extreme paranormal on the Travel Channel's Paranormal Survivor TV show in season 4, episode 9, called Demonic Hauntings. She is also the host of her own live Monday night video podcast on United Public Radio Network called The Angel Rock, and she co-hosts on Tuesday nights live on UPRN. Tripping the Void is the name of that show, and that is with Seraphine Hurley. And you can find, I think I put the stuff in the description. I'm going to have to double check because I was really kind of spread a little bit before the show here. So if it isn't there yet, you will be able to find all of her information there, her contact, the shows, the channels that she is a part of. And there's a lot more to her as well. And we're going to get into that end in terms of what she's been doing creatively recently, which she actually just showcased to me and I thought was really interesting. But I won't say too much. I will let Lorilei go ahead and introduce that artwork to you. But without further ado, as we very often say here on Dark Hour Paranormal, let's welcome Lorilei Potvin to the show. Hey, Lorilei, how are you today?
I'm great, thanks. How are you? Thanks so much for having me, Michael.
Oh, it's my pleasure. It's my pleasure, and I owe you at least this, considering that I've been on your show once, slated to go on twice. We now have a rescheduled date because my internet was not working so well during that storm. But yes, we've talked many times on the personal level, and you are somebody who absolutely fascinates me. And every time I hear you say something, there's always this substance behind it. It's nothing fluff. So I understand, I mean, within my limited conversations about you, okay, because when I came on your show, we talked a little bit more about some of the things involving myself. I did get an idea of who you are and some of the experiences that you've gone through. But in listening to your testimony and your stories, it seems to me that one of the catalysts to this exploration, or at least this awareness that you have now, is something that happened with you some years ago, in which you mentioned the Travel Channel did premiere that story on one of their episodes. Can you talk to us a little bit about that and take us through what you might have gone through along with your family? And feel free to really introduce whatever leg and detail of this story, because this is so fascinating. I'd love to hear about this.
Well, thank you for having me. You're going to be on Monday night, if I'm not mistaken. You're on this Monday night on my show, so I can't wait to have you.
I think it is, actually.
Yes, we're so busy. We were just talking about that. Everything's so busy. I want to say hi to everybody in your chat. I think it just comes from habit because I do that with my show. So I already have your chat up and said hello to everybody. Yeah, so what happened was, excuse me, I am a registered nurse. I hurt my back working out in the community. And we lived in this house. It was my first husband's house. And ever since we moved into that house, things never went well. My ex-husband had 3 designations. He just never seemed to be able to get a great job. Seemed to have, depression, little things here and there. I hurt my back actually in that house. And we eventually are split up, but just before we split up, about the year before, I started doing angel cards. I don't know why I felt this call. It actually, I tell a story is, what do tattoos and angel cards have to do with each other? Nothing. But I walked in to get my first tattoo, and I had my kids with me at the time, my two sons, and the woman there that owns the business. We're good friends now, but she said to me, "You have two very, very special children." And I said, "Well, all children are special." She goes, "No, very, very unique. Do you mind if I do a few things with them?" And I said, "Well, as long as you're not going to hurt them." And she said, "No." So she took all these crystals and we're waving them all around and whatever. And my oldest is very, very creative. My youngest has severe autism. I don't know if that's what it was or what, but then she looked at me and she said, "What do you do?" And I said, "Well, what do you mean? What do I do?" And I said, "I'm a nurse. I'm off with a bad, serious back injury. I won't be able to go back to work." And she goes, "No, I'm picking something else up about you." And she said, "Is there anything you're drawn to?" And I said, "Well, I don't know. I always thought unicorns and angels are kind of cool." She said, "Hang on, I've got something for you." And she ran to the back and she grabbed a deck of these and handed them to me. And I said, "What are these?" She goes, "You'll know." And I said, "Well, when do you need them back?" "You'll know." And that started the that started the angel cards. But after I had taken, at the time when Doreen Virtue used to be the big guru of angel cards, she's since gone, renounced all her work and actually become very religious. But as it goes, I took her course and was a certified angel card reader. I hadn't started anything yet, and I had this dream. This dream one night, it was about 15 years ago. I could tell you it feels like it happened 10 minutes ago, like right now.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a tree in my front yard. There was at the time. And I was outside in this dream, and there was a man sitting in the tree. And as I started to look up, I always say I'm not a very high maintenance type of person, but a very expensive suit. It was dark charcoal pinstripe, a very crisp white shirt, black tie. And then he had very neatly trimmed black goatee and mustache all in one piece, black slick back hair. But it was
Mm-hmm.
the skin, it was this sickly, grayish kind of color. And then I saw his eyes, and his eyes went from pure black to pure fire. And I
Huh.
remember saying, it's not radio friendly to say what I said in my dream, but basically, "Who the F are you?" And he said, "Well, I had started a little pet business at the time too, crafts. And a lot of people, I'd be going around to the city, backing up a little bit, and when I could get out, and they'd want to carry my merchandise, but they didn't want any money for it." And I remember saying to my first husband at the time, "This is so strange." I said, like, "I can't believe this." And we had just watched the movie The Secret when it had come out. And
Oh, I remember that.
I remember him saying, "Well, maybe it's the universe." Okay, so back to the dream. What he first said to me was, "That little business that you have," he said, "that's nothing. I can give you wealth. I can give you fame. I can give you anything of your wildest dreams. All
Mm-hmm.
you have to do is agree to follow me." And I said, "No effing way," in the dream. I said, "Who are you?" He told me that he was a demon, told me his name, told me how to spell it. And again, I told him to get the F out. And he said, "Oh, no, 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 no," like really condescendingly. He goes, "Every time, excuse me, you see a crow or a raven, you'll know who it is." And I remember calling on Archangel Michael in my
Mm-hmm.
dream. There was this brilliant flash of royal blue, silver, and white. I don't cry very easily. I was sobbing. I was
Mm-hmm.
completely drenched in sweat and just shaking. And I had been raised Roman Catholic, never ever heard of this name before. Not that, you hear that about demons all the time in church, at least not in Roman Catholicism.
Well, let
And
me
all
ask you very quickly as
Mhm.
you're going forth, because I have this thought here. You mentioned
Mhm.
that he gave you the name, he told you how to spell it. It's clear that he wanted you to know the name. Why do you think that
Mhm.
was so important when we talk about certain entities, and a name, of course, carries vibration, but
Mhm.
only to a certain extent to some of these more ethereal beings? Why do you think that he needed you to have that anchored within your consciousness, that name?
I don't know, because I had a bunch of angel books and things like that. I went through them all, supposedly had fallen angels, couldn't find it. But going forward in this story, I've been told many things by different people, because after this, all heck broke loose. It was like a full-time job, 10, 12 to 18 hours a day, reaching out locally. I'm in Canada, then provincially, then nationwide and then worldwide trying to find somebody to help with this. Like, why was this happening?
Mm-hmm.
I've been told that I'm supposedly supposed to be meant to be doing something for the light side, and didn't want me doing, I guess it wasn't good for his side, the dark side. I've been told all kinds of things. But the only thing I can tell you is the more I tell spirit collectively that I really don't want to be working with these dark things, the more I get people contacting me for help with dark things. Excuse me. So the only thing I can tell you that when it became significant was that probably about 10, 12 years later after the dream, I had somebody reach out and said they had had, some negative activity going on in their home. They had been given a name in a dream, and did I know if this was demonic? And I said, well, I'm not an expert in this field. Let me take a look for you. I just about fell off my chair because right there on the same page, alphabetically, was the
Mm-hmm.
name I'd been given in the dream, the exact spelling, the exact animal form. It was just mind blowing to see
Mm.
this on tape. So I have no idea why this entity wanted me to know its name, wanted me to know what it is, who it is. When I tell this story, actually with very sensitive individuals, they really get affected. Like, it's not just been my family that's been affected like this. We have numerous pictures. My partner now has been thrown 15 feet across the kitchen, bit,
Oh, wow.
scratched, burnt. We have pictures. There's been others that aren't in our family, just speaking to them via video, that have ended up, Seraphine, for example, my co-host, she's been punched. She's been pinched. She's had all kinds of stuff. This is a crazy story. I never did EVPs in the home. We are out of the house now. We moved about a year finally. We were able to get out after 12 years of this. But the interesting thing is, before we moved, I'd never done, like I said, EVPs, but I used to call into a good friend of mine's show who's live on Facebook and YouTube on Sunday nights, Paranormal Soup, Jason Bland.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to call into his show every week. And there's two particular Halloweens in a row, 2017, 2018. When you hear the EVPs that come through, it will blow your mind. These are beyond Class A EVPs. Like, this is clear, intelligent communication, calling people by name in this live call. It'll blow your mind. Blow
Do
your
you
mind.
think a lot of people have been experimenting with this lately? And I believe, again, in my thoughts here, this is people being sort of irresponsible and taking the wrong approach
Mm-hmm.
when they seek to perhaps record something like EVPs in their own
Mm-hmm.
home.
Mm-hmm.
I've been warned many times, do not do that in the
Don't do
place
it.
that you
Nope.
reside,
Nope.
because very simply, it may open something up. What are your
Yeah,
thoughts on that? Do you agree with that, or is there another perception that
absolutely.
you could convey? Yeah.
No, absolutely. I was advised in the beginning. I didn't know anything about the paranormal. I have psychic abilities on my dad's side, with my his mother and some of his sisters. But other than that, I was never interested in the paranormal. I now know, though, looking back, I've had experiences since I was little. But the reason why I'm mentioning this is, when I started the search looking for answers, that was the number one thing I was told: do not do EVPs, don't start experimenting with things. If we had followed actually some of the people's advice that we had gotten as we started learning about this, we would have put ourselves in a lot more danger and a lot more trouble if we had listened to a lot of people. I think you have to be very judicious when you're reaching out for help. There's an analogy I always use, and it's very simplistic in the fact that, say somebody's heard that a chainsaw is great for cutting down a chain link fence.
Mm.
Somehow you manage to go to your hardware store, get a chainsaw. You don't talk to anybody. You get home and you pull it out of the box. Somehow you get it started, right? You don't even read the instructions. But my main point is, you go up to the chain link fence, you take the chainsaw and you start to cut the fence, and then you're absolutely shocked when it kicks back and cuts your arm or your leg off. My point is it's just a tool. It's a chainsaw evil. Even the equipment that we're
Mm.
using
Mm-hmm.
to have communication with spirit, is it evil? No, but you need to have somebody show you how to use these types of tools, and that includes CVPs. You just don't mess around, because those are the kind of people that'll contact me. They'll see stuff on TV. It seems to be a male, A bit of a loner, really wanting to belong, and I can understand that. But seeing stuff on TV, thinking that's real life, this is what really happens, and then going to say really well-known paranormal places and like taking something from the place and bringing it home, and then all heck breaks loose at their house and they can't figure out what's going on, and
Mhm.
then they're in a heap of trouble. Like you really do need to have somebody show you what to do. Those
That's
are my
a
thoughts.
that's a really great analogy that you
Hmm.
use there with the chain link fence and the chainsaw, because a lot of times that's what happens. And
Hmm.
we've heard different. I
Hmm.
wouldn't call them stories, but they're sort of anecdotal
Hmm.
experiences that have been conveyed through different spiritual teachers
Hmm.
that mention, you cut your arm off and you walk around complaining that you have no arm or that you're in
Hmm.
pain, but you were the one who cut the arm off.
Hmm.
That's sort of an extenuation, I
Hmm.
think, on what you're saying there, wherein, if you get to that point and you put that, chainsaw to the fence, it's already
Hmm.
too late. It's
Yeah.
gonna buck back. You're already too
Hmm.
deep into it. And that's what we don't want people to get to, that point, because it's very difficult to grow another arm. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And a
Yeah.
lot of times, we can't do it. So guess what? You've kind of
Mhm.
opened a door that you can never shut. Whereas you were just looking for entertainment, not you per se, but whoever's doing
The
this.
global you, yeah.
You know what I
Mhm.
mean? A question that's come up, and I actually got into a sort of silly silly discussion with somebody on Facebook earlier.
Mhm.
They said that they believed that not all shadow entities are negative entities.
Mhm.
Is that something that you found as well? Because I'm a little bit on the fence. Of course, I can't say
Yeah.
everything is, one
Mhm.
thing, but from the experiences I hear, from the research I've done, shadow people specifically, not, I think that might be a shadow person in my house, but that's a shadow person. It's been more on the way of benign to very, very negative.
Mhm.
What do you think as a whole?
Well, I can speak from personal experience because on our episode on Paranormal Survivor, they interviewed us for 6 hours and we gave them pictures, we gave them people signed releases, the whole bit. We had no choice in what they showed on the episode. We had no choice in, the actors that did the reenactments or the psychics that commented. There's a reason why I'm mentioning this. But my whole point is we didn't just have one main entity. We had this one that presented itself. We had a shadow person. We also had what my family used to call the shy guy. If anybody ever played Super Mario, he looks like the Grim Reaper with the Jason hockey mask. I actually have a picture of him. And then there was a female shapeshifter that would take my form, even like my doppelganger. I'm actually writing a book about this whole experience because it's just incredible and too long to ever talk about on a show. But my point is, and I've heard people say this as well, is that all shadow beings are awful. They're terrible. They're demons. I think we have to be careful with this because they say the more that I open the door to this
Hmm.
world, the more smaller than a one-celled organism I feel when it comes to the amount of knowledge. I will be learning until the day I die. I will never be an expert at something because there's too much information. And as my best friend Seraphine will say, there's a lot that happens in the middle of the daytime. So don't think just you're safe because the lights are on. The same thing with the shadow. And it was actually my partner Dell that said this. He got into this discussion about a shadow being because this one person, we were having the discussion. Yep, they're all awful. They're evil. They're demonic. They're absolutely. And he said, well, does that mean that my own shadow is something evil? So not everything is as it appears, and nor do I think that we understand everything on the other side. So I'm on the fence with that to the point that I can't say that everything that is in shadow is evil. I think there's many roads you can go down to with this. The same thing that people have the belief that the veil is the thinnest at 3 a.m. and that's when all activity happens. Does it happen because we have a belief in it? Or does it happen when you think about it? It's 3 a.m. somewhere around the world, right?
That's true. That's
Hmm.
true. But
Hmm.
when you think about for radio, for example,
Hmm.
we know quite well that radio signals travel better at night, and I believe it's
Hmm.
because the frequencies are actually lower
Hmm. Yeah.
in the towards the Earth. I forget. I think it's a magnetic. It must have magnetic elements to it
Hmm.
as well. But that being said, it can go further. It's a much clearer signal. I
Hmm.
think that perhaps that has some sort of reflection in the paranormal being able to come out a little bit more clearly during the transition from night to day and day to night. Perhaps why there might be this midnight hour or witching hour that, we call. But, even to me, that's sort of a subjective thing because, it's 3 a.m. somewhere in the world. So somewhere in the world, it's always the witching hour.
Yes.
Which is curious, again, to kind of, look at this in an umbrella sort of way. But recently, I've been doing a little exploration when it comes to understanding the paranormal and perhaps some of these paranormal phenomenons. And what I'm coming up with is that there is a scientific foundation behind these events, but it's not something that we understand. Now, I know that sounds very generic, so let me elaborate a little bit. I think that the reality is comprised of different bubbles, okay, in order to say, okay. And the reason you can't cross into one bubble or another is because, it's a frequency issue, but it's just as thin as a bubble is. But, certain things won't be able to penetrate. Now, if you're able to pop on that other side and push the bubble, you can still affect the space and whatever is over here on this side, if you want to look at it in that way. But yet I think they're still intermeshed, again, dealing with frequencies. So that being said, if we're moving forward in this field and we realize that the other side that we call that, okay, is just as tangible as this illusion, all right, we would be integrating these two realities much more readily. And of course, I think there's much more that goes beyond that, but I think it's getting closer, and it's much closer than we think it is. All of this paranormal phenomenon, again, I think the science that we have just doesn't explain it because it looks like magic. What are your thoughts on a whole, where we're headed with the paranormal field and paranormal investigation and people's interpretations of that concept?
Well, first, I'm going to switch it up on you here with the fact that, and again, this is something Spirit has shown me, and I believe it to be true as well, that the past, present, and future are all happening at once. On the other side, there is no time. We've talked about this off the air, actually, that Spirit's shown me actually. And again, the number one thing I find with people that are spiritually developing or opening, their abilities, I believe everybody has those abilities, whether we forget them, they become latent, or we can reawaken them. But the first thing, and I was guilty of this in the beginning too, what are the names of my spirit guides? Like, how do I open my third eye? And the thing is, first of all, as I understand it, spirit, and when I say spirit collectively, I'm talking our guides, our angels, whatever, some positive is what I'm talking about for people that maybe haven't heard me say that before. They just agree for us to call them a name so that we know who they are. Like, I even teach people how to hear the name of your guide. And it's more about energy on the other side, right? Everything looks like a little pinprick of light. And like I know we've had this conversation, whereas somebody that's aware of their abilities, it almost looks like a bonfire. So it's not just the positive and the negative can also see you. But getting back to your question about the paranormal, I almost believe already that we're switching between timelines without even realizing it, that we do that. I also, there's multiple dimensions. As I understand it, there's a billion different versions of you, of me, anybody out there. And switching back and forth, I don't know. I'm really starting to look even into quantum computers and what quantum, going into the quantum, the universal consciousness. Is that what that has to do with these types of things? Like, I really do believe we can switch timelines. I think Augie Nost, right?
We'll say it again.
Or I've met Augie Nost, or I think I've mentioned him to you before. He's a good friend of mine. He does Broadcasting Alpha here on YouTube, and then he's with a network. He has actually been on Leak Project before and brought on this machine he has called a time resonator machine.
Yes, okay, I remember this now, yes.
I know, I told you about this.
Yes.
And he took a picture of leaving, and as I understand it, he didn't physically leave. And I mean, you could do a whole show on this, so it'll probably sound really confusing, but and he explains it much better in the video. But he actually left, I think it was at 7:00 his time, and the pavement was all dry, the leaves were all off the trees, there was a whole bunch of different vehicles, and he said he tried to return as closely as possible. Excuse me. Okay, sorry. Sorry.
No, that's fine. That's fine.
I told Dell I was live. He came to tell me the food's here. So like, yes,
Hey, as
I'm
long as the
live.
house isn't on fire, you're good.
Yeah, yeah. No, we had takeout tonight. Anyways, getting back to his story. He says he tried to return as close as possible to the timeline that he had left in, and he believes he came back in a different timeline because he took a
Hmm.
picture when I don't know whether his consciousness returned per se, and this is before Photoshop. He welcomes anybody to take the pictures, to examine them pixel by pixel. He says he did not manipulate them in any way, shape, or form. But when he took a picture, he believes he came back in a different timeline because the pavement was all wet, the leaves were all on the trees. There was a whole bunch of differences within 3 minutes of the two pictures. So when you're asking me about the paranormal, where we're going with this, um, I think what the problem is, there's just so much to know. Like, I
Hmm.
think, I think it's almost to the point where somebody will take what they've developed on this end and somebody on this end and this end and this end and this end. But are we ever going to be able to pull it all together? Yeah, I don't think so. I really
See,
don't
that
because
is the question.
Mhm.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, like, you even think I was having this conversation. I think it was with Dell recently and somebody else about Bigfoot. Like, I totally believe Bigfoot or Sasquatch is interdimensional. You know who I was having this conversation with? Wild Trees.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Sure.
Yes, because we were talking about how could you communicate with Bigfoot and a hypothesis that he had to try and make it more of a reality for people to understand about Bigfoot. But even when you're, things like that, like the dog man, we were really even
Mhm.
looking into that. I had no idea. I learned something new every single day about anything like that. Like I didn't realize there were beings that actually existed on the planet at one time that were dog-like, like
Yep.
and
I learned that
civilizations.
too.
Yeah, so there's so
Yeah.
much to
It's
learn, so much
wild.
to know that, and you know what it is? History's been changed so much. And I have a real problem with that because how do we learn from past mistakes that we made, or even where civilization may have been way back centuries and centuries and centuries ago? How do we learn from that, right? Because how do we know they didn't know a lot more than what we know now today?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Hmm.
And, when it comes down to, let's say, well, all right, let me put it. Okay. This is where I want to start with this because the
Hmm.
question is always, how do these things connect or do they connect? And I'm going
Hmm.
to say that there's going to be a common denominator between
Hmm.
them that connects them. And my belief is that is frequency, that is
Hmm.
oscillation, that is
Absolutely.
vibration. If for
Absolutely.
no other reason, the very fundamental building blocks of
Hmm.
what we have available to us and our, create our reality, that's
Hmm.
what's going to tie these things together. And I think it's much more intimate and intricate than perhaps we're even supposing at this point in time.
Hmm.
Now, a lot of us have seen UFOs in the sky and stuff like
Hmm.
that. And there's this cloaking ability that some of these ships
Hmm.
seem to have, where in one moment you see it, the next moment you don't. And if you listen through to some channelings of different extraterrestrial beings,
Hmm.
and believe me, there are numerous different productions on that, you can kind of piece together some of what
Hmm.
they're saying in regards to their technology, in my opinion. One of the ideas here is that these are always in our sky, okay, but
Hmm.
they're cloaked on purpose,
Yep.
and there's some sort
Yep.
of inverse phase mechanism that's being
Hmm.
used in this sort of exercise. And if we do see them, it's really either faulty technology or one of their occupants just wasn't careful enough, and it's not supposed to be seen. So if this is the case, if we're not supposed to be seen by, I'm sorry, if extraterrestrials are not supposed to be seen by us, and including their craft, why do you think that would be something that they would continue to employ as time goes on, seeing as some extraterrestrial races have intervened in the past and they have helped us with our
Hmm.
evolution? Why are they being so secretive and quiet now with us?
I don't know if they are because I don't know if I agree with that because as I keep hearing again from spirit. I've also had unexplained time missing. Our friend who's a producer of my the network I'm on in New Orleans, he always says if I get down there, he wants to regress me and find out what happened. But I also have family. My mother is actually Rh negative, green eyed, and red haired. He's been doing
Hmm.
a 20-year study on where did that DNA come from. Okay. So as I understand it, they keep looking upon us almost as a very young race. Now, whether we can go back to Star Trek and the Prime Directive that they're not meant to intervene. I also have to say I've met far too many people though that have said that it's almost like they know when you're trying to get a picture of them and your camera all of a sudden malfunctions, or I don't think they're really hiding from us. I don't and if anything, I'm almost feeling like there's a lot more sightings of UFOs and extraterrestrials, and why for some people I don't know. There's a whole owl phenomena, even with Mike Cleland out there. That's fascinating. Whether people want to see UFOs or ETs, and whether they have or if they're about to, all of a sudden they start seeing owls. I mean, this is just a whole other world. Now, to me, you can go down the conspiracy theory road that apparently many of these races have agreements with our government.
Mm-hmm.
So is that why, we're seeing them only when we're supposed to, or certain people can see them? Like, there's some crazy phenomena going on. Now, this lady's a little out there. Her name is Gina. I forget what her name is on YouTube, but she's been watching the world's webcams recently.
Mm-hmm.
In all the big cities. Have you seen what she's been seeing?
Have I been seeing what she's been seeing? Is that what you asked?
Yeah, I didn't know if you've seen the videos or.
These are the ones that you've sent me, correct?
No. I might.
These aren't some of the ones.
I might have sent you one, but
I'll have to go back and look.
It's all over the world and crazy. Like, it looks like portals are opening and these energy beings are coming down. I'm getting goosebumps talking about it. I've never seen anything like this. Like, why are these showing up all the time now on these webcams? It's not just one place. Like, it seems to be big cities. Mm-hmm.
And they have to know that they're being monitored in some respect, I would figure, especially with their reported intuition and technological advancements. It's just really interesting to think about. And of course, we're talking a lot right now about soft disclosure and how that might be ramping up. And I didn't necessarily mean to jump into this topic yet like this, but that's okay. We're going down that path.
We know how we are, Michael, when we talk. It just goes wherever it goes.
It's like a regular conversation between Lorilei and I right now is what you guys are witnessing. So in respect to the disclosure, this is something that, people are tossing around quite readily, just getting ready for something to happen. I have two questions on this. One, in that way, do you feel intuitively something is coming, as a lot of people are feeling something's going to happen? We can't put our finger on it, but something energetically is coming. And two, how do you think, if we have this technology that has been back engineered by extraterrestrials and so forth, how do you think we should responsibly be using some of this technology going forward?
Well, first of all, God, what one to start with first? I do think something's coming, but I'm going to give you a different phenomena here. I think what's coming is that and I think it was Werner von Braun, one of my guests that I had quite a bit on my show, Dan Willis. He's gone back since 1900 and connected all the dots with history. And he talked quite a bit about this extensively on my show. That I believe it was his name. It's one of the higher up Nazis. And he talked about false flags that were coming. Apparently he mentioned something, he didn't call it 9/11, but something akin to 9/11. He mentioned a few of the shootings and stuff. Now he said the final one is supposed to be a fake alien invasion. Is this why we're seeing this stuff? Is this what people are feeling? Is there going to be some of and we know we have benevolent races. So are they coming to intervene and stop this? Is this what we're feeling? But I almost feel like something's going to come to a head here. Something has to give with what's going on this planet right now. Something has to give and pull us all together and unite us. So is that what it is? I don't know. But I would not put it past with the powers that be that this is something. And of course, then your question in your mind is, well, what would be the purpose of having a false flag like that? Right? Then are you going to, your higher up pretend to come to the rescue here and save the rest of humanity from the people that are in power? I don't know what their agenda is. But yeah, I do feel, and again, are they going to do this trying to make UFOs, ETs look like the bad guys, and then we're going to see what they're really all about, that they are good. Because I do believe a lot of them are very benevolent. I've seen far too many people who channel them as well. No, the second part of your question, I forget what it was. I knew I was going to forget.
How do you think we could responsibly use technology like this?
Yes. So I'm going to be really honest with you. Because of human nature, I don't think that we're ready for that kind of technology. Because you think about any of the really great technological advances that we've made throughout history. And yes, when you have something with great power comes great responsibility. I'll use that quote. And unfortunately, there's always I think with the duality that we live in here on earth, with the good versus bad, evil versus whatever, that there's always the potential for somebody to use it for nefarious means. And I don't think we're ready for it, to be honest with you. There's a lot of people that are, but we're not in the right position to be able to use it responsibly.
Collectively, maybe. This is what pisses me off, okay? Because I know those Freemasons, as they're known as the group, okay? The more esoteric part of that company has had and has held so much ancient knowledge that has been gathered through the years. But also, I know that they've lost a lot of it. So what they may have had back in, oh God, I don't know, Roman times, maybe it's later than that. I forget exactly.
1,000 years before Jesus Christ. I'm actually, for any of your listeners out there, I think I sent you the film, The Fall of the Cabal. There's a second series she's doing, and she's gone back to history to connect it. It is fascinating. There's going to be 16 episodes to it. And she goes right back through history, where this all started, back way past the Phoenicians and the whole bit, connecting the dots, what happened, where this all came from, how we got to where we are today. Fascinating.
I was going to bring up, too, that initially the reason they were holding on to all this information is because we were plunging into a lower consciousness level, and they were actually taking it to protect us from ourselves one way or another. You're not going to give somebody nuclear technology in, I hate this expression, the dark ages. Okay. I know that's sort of been, a moot statement for a while, but you are not going to give somebody something like that because they're more than likely going to misuse it out of not understanding what they have. Yet I think we're getting to a point where that consciousness over many years has begun to rise. And whatever exploration we've done on the peripherals there with the black projects and the technology and back engineering of certain things, I believe we are getting to a point where we can now start reintroducing some of these old and ancient concepts very slowly to kind of gently, ease this and knead this into the public, so that, people who resonate with that sort of thing will also help collectively bring up the vibration. Now, a quick question. Let me put it this way. What's the percentage of UFOs we see in the sky, do you believe, is our military versus extraterrestrial? What's that percentage in your opinion?
Oh, I don't know if I can give you a percentage. I don't know. I'm hearing 40% at least that we think is extraterrestrial. Is not extraterrestrial. It's actually military. Again, I'm going to go back to my friend Dan Willis. He was in the military. He talked about some fascinating things about what really is going on versus what we're aware of as humanity. Even Joe Montaldo, who is the owner of UPRN, and he also
fantastic guy.
Yeah, big part of it's actually the International Center for Alien Research, or ICAR. And he was the one that actually opened my eyes because, okay, I'm even going to go there with the cattle mutilations.
Yeah, no, that's when we all spoke after the initial show that we did. I was blown away by some of that. So I don't know how much you want to get into it.
I wherever you want to go, and
let's get into that a little bit, because then we're going to come back to crystals here very shortly, because I have plenty of questions on that. But yes, let's talk about the cattle mutilations and perhaps. Oh no, I'm not going to put any names out there. We'll start from there.
Well, okay, so I'm not an expert in the field, but as I understand it, and I did obviously look this up, but he said where the majority of the cattle mutilations happens, there's a certain line throughout the U.S., right? And he said that's actually military, that they've got direct energy weapons, things like that. They were testing to see, and don't quote me on this, you probably might remember better than me, but I believe it was radiation levels and all kinds of things. They weren't going to do this with human beings, so they do it with cattle, but the cattle that they took and where they do these cattle, I guess they're, whether it's the state ruling or what it is, but the cattle will be, I guess the rancher will get the money back for them. They're insured. So
Mm-hmm.
this is why they're doing what they're doing. Because I even went there with them, and I will, because I was seeing this happening in South America, and I'm going, okay, so what's going on in South America then? And I brought up a few cases, and he was aware of them. He said, in his opinion, that these was either copycats or that there were certain reasons why these cattle were also mutilated, basically, to be testing for certain things going on there. So no, I'm not doing it justice, but the thing is, there's a reason for it, and you've got some people that have based their life's work on this, so they're not
That's
going to
true.
agree with that. And
Right.
I think this is what the problem is, and I always say I don't think we're ever going to know until we go back home, if you will, or heaven, or wherever you want to believe that you may go when we pass from this lifetime. But there's so many people, even with our own paranormal story, like backing up here. I mean, the amount of people I talked to, and Dell and I got pretty good at this. Within about 30 seconds, we would know if somebody knew what they were talking about, or they
Mm-hmm.
did, or they didn't. And, I think everybody's got a different idea coming from whether their life experience, their education, who they've spoken to, what their own personal experience is. So I don't know if we're ever going to be able to agree on all of this stuff. Never mind what we're seeing on TV and in movies and stuff. And a lot of people believe that to be real.
I have to say, it would make more sense to me if the
Hmm.
military were doing some of these abductions of the cattle, or even doing it right there on the spot and going through experimentation, rather
Hmm.
than extraterrestrials doing it. Yeah, I understand. Okay,
Hmm.
they're taking soft tissues and certain organs for their study. I mean, essentially, they're taking us too. Why aren't they just taking the whole cow? Maybe they are, and that's why we find some of these carcasses. They
Because
seem to
they
be
need the
dropped.
body. They need the body. That I asked Joe that, actually. I said, why don't they just take the whole body then? Why leave the body? Because I asked these kind of questions, and he said
Yeah.
the rancher needs the body to be able to take the pictures and present the carcass for insurance purposes. So they make sure they get the money back for the animal that's been
Yeah,
sacrificed or destroyed, I guess, if you want to call it
it's
that.
very considerate of
Hmm.
the abductees to think about the ranch and their financial loss.
Hmm.
It's wild to me, but I believe
Hmm.
that there very well could be a reason for that, because they've taken hundreds
Well,
upon
I think it's the
thousands of
government.
animals.
It's the
Yeah.
government that's doing it so that you at least get reimbursed for the animal that you've lost. So it's not like it's cheap to get an animal of that size, or so it makes more sense to me, knowing what you know of the technology that's out there. And believe me, I think we only know less than 1% of some of the technology that's, we're starting to figure out
Oh God,
versus
yeah.
what they really have.
Yeah.
So to me, it makes more sense that, yeah, this is, and when you can plot where they've done it, like there's a certain line that Joe said that they follow. Like you won't find them
Yeah.
over, I think it's on the East Coast or wherever. It's always this line. I think it's somewhere through the Midwest or somewhere. Hmm.
Pretty curious. And I know this is a very expansive theory that I
Hmm.
would like to get into and discuss at length. Hopefully, maybe I can have yourself and Joe come on and we can really get into this, because
Oh,
Joe
that would be
talks
fun.
a lot
Hmm.
about blood, and you have things to say about blood and blood type. So
Hmm.
that's definitely going to be a show. I have to
Hmm.
call him. Freaking phone
I
died,
love
and you ended
hearing
up
that
having to
voice.
give me
We'll
his
talk
number again.
after this because he's
Yes,
got
that's
he's
fine.
got openings. He wants to have you on, so we'll talk about
Okay.
that after. Hmm.
Absolutely. So let's see. Let's get into some crystals and stuff.
Yes.
And if we have a little time, maybe we'll talk about the Akashic records that you're
Mm-hmm.
able to access as
Hmm.
well, because that's always been fascinating to me. But
Hmm.
I, one of my first shows I did, we talked about Reiki healing and crystals
Hmm.
and how they sort of all intertwine and so forth. So I'm not really sure where to start this, because it's such an enormous subject. But
Hmm.
let's talk about crystal points and the origins of these
Excuse me.
particular crystals.
Hmm.
So this one I have in my hand, I've had this since 2001.
Hmm.
I've had
Hmm.
this crystal, and when I bought it, the person who sold it to me at the spiritual fair that we used to
Hmm.
call those back then said it was
Yeah.
a Lemurian crystal. Okay,
Yeah.
now maybe you and I can sit down and we'll hold it in our hand. We feel a certain vibration. There might be a recognition of that vibration. But what does that truly mean? How do we know that this crystal, even though it's very old, was a part of Lemuria or an Atlantean crystal? How do we know the real spiritual origin that people are sometimes projecting about these objects?
I don't think you do. I think you have to go on what you feel energetically. As I understand it with a Lemurian crystal, when you hold it up to the light, they're supposed to look like there's little bits of coating on the inside of it, like different symbols and stuff like that.
Oh, really?
Give me 1 second. Mine are over there. I thought I grabbed everything else because I want to show you something very quickly. Hang on.
Okay. Yeah, sure. Absolutely.
I'm doing that. It's right over here.
Yeah, that's okay. So that's curious. I mean, I've studied crystals for a very long time. I've read many books about how to identify them in respect to their specific purpose, whether they're record keepers, whether they're healing crystals. I mean, it's all kind of placed on the different points that determines what that crystal is. I was just talking about them, having specific purposes and so forth. But yeah, I've never heard of actually seeing any symbols or anything like that within the crystal. Although there's many striations, I could see that being the case. I don't know if you eventually, on pareidolia, I don't know. That's interesting. Yeah, let me know about that.
So that's what I've heard with Lemurian crystals. Like, I don't know if this one, I think this one is supposed to be but it just has a bunch of striations. Now, is that just from being the way it's been cut? Because I use these in my crystal Reiki, all the points in here. I'm looking for the one I'm looking for you, though, is the most.
Uh-oh, we lost your sound. Yeah. That's okay. We're not going anywhere. There we go.
You got?
Oh, yeah, I got you now, I think.
How about now?
Yes.
Okay, I won't move. Okay, so one of the I don't know what happened there because we're talking about crystals. Okay, so one of the most powerful crystals out there is something called a Vogel crystal. I don't know. Have you heard of them before?
I actually have not.
Okay, we're going to go back to Dan Willis again. He's a scientist and he worked with somebody by the name of Marcel Vogel. Marcel Vogel used to be one of the top scientists at IBM. He's actually the guy that is responsible for that metallic silver coating on DVDs and CDs that you see that you can peel off. It looks like mylar. Now, he never believed in crystals. He had nothing to do with them. But when he retired, I guess he started getting into a bunch of research and he came across the power of various different crystals. And he started realizing that if you cut quartz crystal on a certain type of degrees, it amplified the healing abilities by it's unmeasurable. Anyways, to get in Marcel Vogel crystal now, because Vogel has passed away, there's only one person in the world that can cut them, but I think they're probably between 10 and 20 grand to buy. Now, this is a fake. We'll have to move it over here. This is a fake. And when I say fake, you'll get people telling you this is a real Vogel crystal because it's got all the angles on it. It's not a real Vogel crystal. So I think what my whole point is, you have to be really careful with crystals. And what I tend to do with people is when I'm talking to them about crystals is some people are really sensitive, so you have to be careful. Some can really do some crazy things to you if you're sensitive to the energy. But I tell people to walk into a crystal store, take a look around, and it's almost like being in a candy shop. Go in and see what you're drawn to. See, how does it feel? How does it make you feel? Because you know what? There's gazillions. Heck, I grabbed a bunch for tonight. There's gazillions and gazillions and gazillions and gazillions of them. So that's what I tell people, because if you try and memorize every single type of crystal that's out there, every site, and think about it, even the properties that are attributed to a crystal, that it comes from another human. Now, whether they've channeled it, whether they've just decided that this is what it's worth. So to me, I say to people, go on how it feels for you. Pick it up. The other thing you can do, and this is going to sound crazy, is ask the crystal in your mind when you pick it up. Do you want to come home with me? If you hear no, that means no. It doesn't want to come home with you. It's not meant to work with you. And it sounds crazy.
I've heard of
like
that.
you're living. It's true. I do that.
Well, some people will argue that they're actually sentient and they are alive in their own right. And I believe on some respect they are. I believe that is definitely true. And I think our ancestors, and going back even further, used to use these crystals to store information. I don't know how they coded it in some way. There was a way that they would be able to instill that within the crystal. And now we can, well, really? Well, you mind telling us a little bit about that? Because if we have somebody who hasn't much experience with this and hears that, that's a really interesting proposal.
Okay, the best crystal to start out with if you're new to crystals, because crystals can get quite expensive, and then if you get like me, whether it's oracle cards or crystals or whatever it may, once you get started, it's like it becomes an obsession. So the beautiful thing about quartz is, and I have this box is just full of them, is quartz is very, very powerful. It can cleanse any other kinds of crystals, but it can also hold the frequency of any other crystal. So say you want a crystal for something for healing, or say you've got anxiety, like amethyst, say, for example, is beautiful for helping keeping you calm, I have found, for most people, but you don't have amethyst. Just set the intention. You're going to hold it in your hand and just imagine, I want this to embody the frequency of amethyst, or even if you don't know the name, something to help me stay calm, relieve my anxiety. Believe it or not, folks, that is what intention is all about. Meaning it, getting to a quiet space, because a lot of people think, there's all this hocus pocus and all this. It's not. One of the most important things that I like to teach people about when you are starting to open your gifts, or remember them, I prefer to use, is learning how to use your imagination. Are you imagining this? No, but a lot of people, if you're not visual, have a hard time picturing it. But what we need to remember is that, even going back to a science background, is that everything is energy on this planet. Energy can neither be created nor destroyed. It can be transferred from one place to another. But what people forget, your words, your thoughts, and your emotions are some of the most powerful forms of energy that we have. A lot more people are telekinetic that don't even realize, for example. There's all kinds of things that can happen. So by just sitting in a quiet space with it, holding it in your hands and setting that intention, you can do that.
It's unfortunate. It's unfortunate that an activity like that is so foreign to so many people. We're so busy in life that, to fit something like that in, it just doesn't seem to work that way. And of course, there are a lot of people who rely on the external to kind of identify themselves and identify reality and so forth, forgetting that there's anything internally. That's really interesting. What do you think?
Oh, sorry. I was just gonna go ahead, Ray, if you want to ask me the question, but I want to.
I was going to ask you very quickly, because this has come up many times. Do you think it's better to use faceted and polished crystals for healing, or do you think that the raw cut is a much better thing to be using energetically?
Everybody asks me about this. And again, I am not a stickler for rules. Even if you go to my channel, I teach, say, for example, something, a love shield. It's not coming from a place of fear, but how to protect yourself, or grounding and gritting, another thing to help like with stress or anxiety. But the reason I mention that is I think people are individuals. Everybody is unique. Everybody is different. Everybody's energy, frequency, or vibration is different. Again, picking up a crystal, how does it feel to you? Excuse me. So, for example, this is one that would be polished. This is could be one of the ones, a Reiki one that I would use when I'm doing crystal Reiki. But
that's gorgeous.
Does that mean it's going to work better than I can use something like this? You go with we all have that, we want to call it your gut, your intuition, your sense of knowing, but you don't know why but why do you say, for example, the global you likes cotton versus somebody else likes polyester versus because you know how it feels to you, you just know that it feels good on you, right? Or a color, why some people like a certain color versus another. So you have to go, what does it feel like when you pick it up? How does it make you feel? Do you hear anything? Do you smell anything? Do you taste anything? Does it bring any thoughts to mind? So to me, I don't get hung up on whether it's polished, whether it's this or it's that, because everybody's unique. That's my thoughts.
Very interesting. Great thoughts on that, actually.
I wanted to share a story with you.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, so for example, about crystals. Okay, my partner Del, he's not quite where I am with certain things. Anyways, I remember talking to him. I love moldavite. Moldavite sometimes is too strong for people. Okay. And I was telling him about it. I'm sure it went in one ear and out the other. Okay. So all of a sudden he tells me about 2 or 3 years later, oh my gosh, I just found out about this crystal moldavite. It's incredible. Blah, 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 blah. Right. Yeah, sure, Del. Like I was telling you about this years before. Right. Anyways, so he had this bump from hockey on his scalp. Okay. It was there. I was worried. I was like, from the nursing perspective, like it almost looked like it was some type of malignancy. And I didn't think it was going to go away or anything like this. He doesn't tell me what he's doing. But once he discovered about moldavite, and usually you should pick out your own crystal. But I asked him, I said, do you want me to pick you one up when I'm out and about? And he goes, yeah, sure. So I got him one. He didn't tell me what he was doing. I knew he had been meditating, he said, with it right here on his third eye when he would lay down at bed. But he'd be wearing like a skull cap like he was. Half the time I couldn't see it, right? He'd go to bed. He comes up to me, I swear to God to you, about 3 weeks later, and he goes, hey, check this out. Lifts up his hair and shows me. And I'm going, what are you showing me? He goes, the bump is gone. I go, no.
What?
He goes, yeah. So he shows me, I kid you not, Michael, if he was in here, I get him to tell you, no line, no mark. It looked like it had never been there. I go, what the heck did you do? He goes, all I did was, he took about 2 or 3 weeks. He goes, I laid down. He goes, I had on my third eye and I just focused. I just imagined that I was sending the energy to this bump. It was gone. Now that sounds crazy. I'm not making this up, but what I'm saying is it was about the intention. Okay. I didn't intervene in any way. I'm the healer in the house. He did it all himself. So what I'm saying was focusing the energy, imagining where you're going to send it. We have other crystals in the house. He decided to use this. I'm not saying everybody's going to have the same experience. My whole point of sharing this story is exactly with crystals. Pick something that you feel intuitively good about it. Like I said, start with quartz first. It can hold any frequency and see how it works for you. Quartz doesn't need cleansing.
Well, man, you mentioned he had the crystal up on his third eye. It almost made me go, because every time it's too strong. I mean, I think about, I used to put Herkimer diamonds next to my bedstand when I was sleeping at night. And originally I thought that this would just, kind of raise a vibration, have a nice sleep. Now it raised it so high that I just would never sleep. I mean, I don't sleep as it is when I'm laying down, I'm traveling, but this was like a whole different level. I felt like I lived lifetimes when I woke up. I was like, oh my God, I'm so tired.
Yeah, but you knew that. And that's why I said you have to be careful with crystals, because some people are super sensitive to some and others are not. Like, for example, I showed you this before. This was actually a friend of mine makes. He's a fellow Canadian, Karen Holton. And these are
yes, talk about these. Yes. Are those
go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. I think that's what you were showing me before the show, correct?
Yes. No, I haven't made them yet, but I'm going to start. But she has somebody that makes these for her. And the beauty of organite is it's cut in a pyramid shape, right? It's got a special type of resin she says she uses, but it's also got like copper and metal in here. Symbols are important. Not that we're not getting into witchcraft or anything, but there's a pentagram. She asked me how I felt about it because I love skulls and she knows I do. So this guy's got a skull in here she put. And then this one, she knows I love angels. So I forget what the name of this little symbol is on the front here. And this one has an angel. But the beauty of this is supposed to help with EMF emissions like 5G, negative energy to transmute, all kinds of things, right? And this isn't necessarily a crystal per se, because this is resin, but there's crystals in here. You use metal shavings with it when you're making organite. And I believe that this is some kind of quartz figurine in here.
Love it. Oh, I love it. I before I forget, because I did already. Sorry, Coral. I have a question from the chat room. She asks, do crystals have especially strong power if mined in different areas of the US or Canada?
That's interesting. She's reading my mind. I don't know if they have a specifically special power, but for example, I live in a city called Thunder Bay, which is in northwestern Ontario in Canada, right in the middle of Canada. I'm about 6 hours north of Minneapolis, Minnesota. We are very well known for Super 7 or Melody crystals. So they have 7 different types of crystals in here. I wear this. I actually wired this. I wear it all the time. But when I use it for healing, I kid you not, you won't be able to see it on the camera. There's a little piece of red in the back and on the front. And when I'm using it with healing, it vibrates. You can feel it vibrate and it starts to heat up. It starts to heat up. So, for example, we're known for these. You can get these in other parts of the world. Now, you have to be careful too. There's a lot of places that sell fake crystals. They sell fake ones, especially when they're the polished ones. So again, that's why I tell people to pick it up and feel it, because you'll feel if it doesn't have any energetic signature. It'll just feel like plastic in your hands.
It just feels dead.
Yeah. This is Auralite 23 that I got. This is another one that we're well known for because we're right on the Canadian Shield. So again, so depending, yes, there are certain areas. It's not quite answering your question, but I guess it is. Certain areas of the world are known for having certain types of quality of crystals from there. So does it mean you can't get them in other places? No, but if you really want, I believe, something powerful, and if I guess it would be like getting anything. If you knew that a certain part of the world was well known for something that you really wanted and you're making an investment, especially, why would you not go to the real place, like the place that they're known for?
And simply stated, I think so, because, and simply stated, just to kind of expound on that a little bit, you go to a different country and you taste their culture, you taste their cuisine. You go to another one, it's going to be different from where you just came from. And every place that you go has its own signature, very unique. I think energetically, there are pockets throughout the earth and on the surface, of course, that hold a lot more energy perhaps than other spots for the... Yeah. There's the earth chakras, and then there have been events that have occurred on that soil, and repeatedly ground this energy and vibration into the material around. But that being said, the Herkimer diamonds are really well known because they carry such a heavy, high charge, and they only come from Herkimer, that particular kind.
I just got one, actually. Okay, this is actually my real Vogel. That one was actually off of that one that I showed you. Where did he go? He looks like is a quartz in the middle, and then he's got 4 points off the side. That's where that first one. But for example, I've got this lady I buy from in Florida. I love her stuff. She's on Instagram. So there's pyramids. Like the shape can also make a difference. The cuts too, right?
Yes, so, very much so.
There's that, but I have a Herkimer diamond in here. This is actually my fake Vogel. Sorry, this is my fake Vogel crystal.
Interesting.
So see, it's double pointed, but it's the cut of the angle on the crystal that amplifies the energy. And you can look these up, folks. Yeah. Is that?
I don't know. There wasn't a Vogel crystal that it was, but it looks very similar in the way it's faceted.
Look up Vogel crystals. Actually, Dan Willis has a website called marcelvogel.org. He'll talk about that because he has pictures of real Marcel Vogel crystals because he used to work with him, and his wife exchanged those Vogel crystals when they got married. And he talked about that. He doesn't even know anything about healing. He talked about many things that he healed by using his true Vogel crystal. And then you can really get into the science of why it's so important.
Sorry, I had a little kid in the background rummaging through a bag. Go ahead.
Hey, we all got kids. I'm looking.
You know how it is.
There's my Herkimer diamond. I wanted one forever, and I just got
gorgeous.
One. So once you start, I really love pendulums because I use pendulums to do my healing work, as well as it sounds like, for example, I have a friend that's a fellow light worker he's Métis. So this is a black quartz that I use. This is actually no animal lost their life on purpose. These are donated to him. It's an actual horn from, I think it's a steer, if I'm not mistaken. And I've got all kinds that I get from him. And I use these a lot in my work when I'm doing crystal Reiki because there's specific symbols that you use for crystal Reiki. Oh, is it possible to have too many crystals? Do the energies overpower?
Yeah, I was going to get there.
I just saw it on the screen.
That's a great question, though, Misty.
Is. Okay, so what you need to do, because there's the other thing I wanted to mention, Spirit's bugging me to mention. You can make things like crystal waters or moon waters and all kinds of things. You have to be careful because a lot of crystals don't belong in water, for example. And I'm going to answer your question, by the way, hon. This is a selenite plate. This is beautiful for cleansing any crystals that you're using, like between sessions and stuff like that. They're not that expensive, but it's actually like a gypsum. There was a story of a lady, because I found a lot of women wear the crystals in their bras. So I'm actually making crystal carriers. And one woman stuck her selenite. It's very high vibe. It's supposed to help connect with the angels. And then she stuck it in her bra in the morning. And then when she took it off at night, she couldn't find it. And she found out what happened. It had melted from the moisture of her body.
Oh, wow. What? That's crazy.
You have to be careful what you put in your bra, ladies, because I know there's lots of ladies that do that. Now, as to have too many crystals, no, I don't think that you can have too many crystals. I have a really good friend in Georgia who I work on a lot of stuff with, and she makes grids and all, like, her and I can talk for hours about crystals. The thing is, when you're mixing them together, yeah, sometimes the energy can be too much. Like you just said, Michael, like you had something on your nightstand and you couldn't even sleep. So
it's awful.
Again, I think you have to go on how it makes you feel. Because again, there are hundreds upon thousands of different types of crystals. Like these are called Moki. I think they're called Moki balls. I'm trying to find a match to it. These ones have a male and a female. You can use these when you're meditating to help equalize your energy. They just look like two little nuts. But there's so many different kinds, is what I'm saying, that I wouldn't mix too many, because I was told in the beginning, don't ever mix your crystals together. Oh my God, that's terrible. Don't do it. No, you got to go on how it makes you feel. And most people say, well, I'm not psychic. I don't have, all of us have a gut, if you want to call it a gut feeling or.
And that there's a word for that before we call it something else like intuition, which is more of not an exaggeration, but a building on that world. God, I can't talk tonight. This is terrible. I'm sorry, guys. Jesus Christ. Tongue tripping all around. I'm not even high. What the hell? Anyway, so just to kind of talk a little bit really quickly about what Coral was asking. Okay. Yes, I have to agree with you. In the end, you want to feel these crystals in your hands. And I don't mean just, sitting down for a moment, actually sitting down with the crystal, perhaps even closing your eyes and just feeling what your body's reaction is to that particular field. Okay. This particular cluster, my sister brought back from Poland. Okay. This is from Poland. This crystal cluster feels super different than, let's say the Lemurian one. And the biggest difference is when I'm holding them in my hand, the Polish crystal is much heavier in energy. And I know it's a bigger crystal, but you could feel this energy. It almost feels like it pulls down on your elbow, and I can feel it here in the chest is something incredibly grounded. I would not travel with this crystal. Oddly enough, it's huge. There's many points. I would not be traveling with this crystal. This one, on the other hand, though, literally the other hand, I hold this, I all of a sudden begin feeling a vibration in my hand. It starts heating up. I feel the warmth. We've done a lot of different things together. This one and I. In fact, there's actually a little hole here where you can make a whistle sound out of it. So that's unique as well. It's just cool. But there's a very definite difference in terms of where these have come from and how they feel, Coral.
You know what I just felt when I kept hearing that one was your friend. Like a friend, like you're that close. Whereas the other one was very almost I almost want to say stately, very stately, sort of special occasions. So stern is what I keep hearing, almost like very stern, means business. Oh, I'm getting goosebumps. I always say that's my sign for truth. But that's how I was, and again, you would know because it's your crystal, but that's what I kept picking up energy wise. And it may sound like we're making up a bunch of BS here, especially if you're just new to no, I'm going to be honest.
No, I know it's true. I think it's funny too, because I understand that.
But you know what? You just got to go with it. Like it's anything that's new, anything that we first try. Are we an expert at? And the other thing I always tell people, if someone tells you they're an expert, no, beyond 100% in any of this stuff, run, because none of us are. We're human.
I'll just say too, as we've been talking, I just held this crystal, and so I've held it for about 45 seconds to a minute and a half now while you were talking. This is already as warm as my hand is. And what the vibration feels like, just to kind of describe to some of you guys, you get that phantom vibration on your leg where you think you have your phone, but you realize it's nobody's calling you because your phone isn't even in your pocket, but yet you felt that phantom vibration. That's what it feels like. But it's something that you can observe because it's consistent. It keeps going. And sometimes it comes in waves, like pulses. Maybe it's stronger for a moment and then draws back. And it's stronger and then draws back. I would like to look more into the oscillations and kind of look and see what the correlation is, if the oscillation that we're feeling and can measure is similar to the actual frequency that this exists on. And this is, again, scientific. This isn't esoteric. We can measure that. We can get the frequency of what this is, the material. I wonder if there's a correlation there, because if there is, that is pretty damn good proof right there. It's not smoking gun, but it's a pretty good display that we are in fact connecting on an intuitive level with these particular objects.
Well,
I wanted to ask you very quick.
Go ahead.
I want to ask you real quick, because I know you have another show you're doing tonight, and I think you thought we were going for an hour. You usually do an hour and a half, or about an hour and 10 minutes. Are you okay to finish out? Okay. I just wanted to make sure.
10 o'clock. I only have to switch the iPad to Dell, and Joe never starts right at 10 o'clock. So no worries. He told me to show up when we wanted. So no big deal.
Fantastic. All right. Now that he doesn't want me to put him down, like I put it down, I want to hold it again. This is so funny. I haven't really worked with this for a while, and I can feel my energy going up. So I'm starting to talk faster. So I got to bring it down a little bit here. Anyway.
Okay.
When you sit down to work with somebody and do a grid, okay, which very quickly, when you get into it, maybe explain a little bit what that is, or the different types of grids that you might normally use. How does this healing session go with either a laying on of stones, or if you're using your wand? How are you incorporating that into your healing practices?
Okay, so when I do a crystal Reiki session, usually with most people, it's better to have more than one. So what I like to look at, it's almost like being a nurse when I'm admitting somebody. So what I'll do is, when somebody, contacts me for whatever reason, it can be anything too. It could be, a lot of people right now are feeling lost, feeling blocked. Maybe their, abundance is blocked. Maybe there's a lot of fear, a lot of anxiety, even with illness. I'm not going to cure you, but it may help with a lot of symptoms. We didn't even get into healing, because that's something else I believe too, that the human body is completely capable of healing itself. But because of whatever we run into, energy wise, emotion wise, could be trauma, anything like that. And we're almost going into Eastern medicine here, but you store that energy when you don't release it. And it's there, like, for example, and they're starting to prove this a little bit with science. It's got a long way to go, but cancer, they're looking at possibly as an emotional type of energy disease, that we're not really, something's happened, we're hanging on to it, especially, maybe some animosity or anger or whatever that may be. So this is the kind of thing that crystal Reiki can help release. So what I do is I have you come in. You don't have to come into my house. We'll connect. We can do this distance wise. And again, science has shown you do not have to be in front of somebody.
Nope.
So I'll do a history with you, find out why you're coming to see me, get a little chit chat with you about what's going on. And then what the session involves, sometimes I will use a grid, sometimes I won't. Sometimes I wait, usually after a couple sessions, because I want to see how the person responds to the energy and the crystals. But what I first do is I use a specific pendulum. I chose this one. It's a Reiki pendulum. And I will check all your chakras. And I draw, it's like the gingerbread man. I was going to grab it. I heard Spirit say grab the chart, and I didn't. But it looks like, because I have it laminated, so it looks like a little gingerbread man. And I check all your chakras, and I check to see whether it's, now when I say open and closed or avoiding, your chakras never stop spinning, because I've met people that think that your chakras have stopped spinning and that's why they need to be cleansed. Your chakras, if they stop spinning, you would be dead, because they're energy centers. So sometimes they get sluggish, they get a lot of energy accumulated there. No, puppy girl. My dog's coming over to visit now. So what we do is we check them. No, sweetheart, stay down. So, and I of course would ask your permission, and then I would check them all. And usually, and I'm never surprised at almost ever by what somebody shared with me is going on, will usually show up in that chakra. Okay. So, say for example, I've got someone that's a real giver. They just love people, they love to give their energy, anything somebody wants, they give you the shirt off their back. Yet, maybe they're feeling stuck in their personal life or whatever, then when I'm checking the chakras, I would find probably, root and sacral, which are lower chakras, might be a little off, but I'm
Hmm.
expecting probably solar plexus would be off quite a bit, whereas their heart chakra or energy center would be huge. And then we'd work our way up, right? So then after I do this, it's kind of hard to see. I need to make a video to show people how to do this. I then use the chakra symbols I have. Or not chakra, sorry, Reiki symbols for crystal Reiki. And I also use these little points around the chakras. And then with the wand that I have, I will either direct energy in or direct energy out. And I also use intuitively different colored crystals to help
Hmm.
balance the chakras. That's what the whole point is, to balance everything. Okay. Then when I'm done, and I'm going through this very quickly, I will then go through and pull all the energy down, anything that needs to be pulled down, and to ground it, right? At the end of
Hmm.
it, what I do, I don't know where my little bar is, but it's a selenite wand, I call it. So it's a bar of selenite. It looks like probably about this thick. I then, afterwards, I'm getting off track here. So after I ground you, so I'm trying to think about all this. Normally I have all my tools in front of me. So what I will do is I use my pendulum. This is the one. I will check the left side of the body. I will check the right side, and I will check the front. Now, the reason why I do that is because we have an aura. Whether you want to believe we have an aura or not, that's what our personal space is, depending on how you know somebody. Say you don't know somebody very well and they step into your personal space, we immediately step backwards. It feels icky. We don't know why it feels icky, but we know it feels icky. That's your aura. So we get cracks in our aura, especially around our joints, or say we've had a previous injury, say we've got something
Hmm.
going on that we may not even be aware of. For example, one session I did with somebody, I was going through and I was checking the left seemed to be okay, and then it was the right side around the ankle. I go, do you have some problems going on with your right ankle? And they go, holy crap, they were swearing. They go, I had a motorcycle accident there like 25 years ago. I shattered my ankle. Nobody knows this. And I said, well, it's just showing up in your energy field. It needs some work there. So afterwards, when I check everything, I will then use the selenite wand and I pull the energy down to seal it all. And sometimes, and I remember my mentor telling me this, and I never ran into it. Sometimes the energy almost feels sticky, like glue, as you're running it down. Or
Interesting.
sometimes you run into knots. Like, it's really weird. You can feel it. I ran into someone the other day pulling it down. It was so sticky. Like, it took me forever to get that energy to come down. So I will seal the whole aura. And then afterwards, we go back through and check to make sure everything's sealed. So it's quite a long session. And the person doesn't have to be on with me while I'm doing that towards the end. Like, say it's too long for them, but
Have you ever come across anyone who had a shattered chakra? And the reason I'm asking you this is because many years ago, when I had just gotten out of college, I also got out of a 5-year relationship, which at the time I actually gave a crap about. These days you kind of handle, that sort of thing a little differently, but it pretty much floored me. It was my first big relationship. Yeah, I thought I was going to marry her, blah, blah, blah. Long story short, she left me. And the day that it happened, I felt something in my chest sort of like snap or pop. And it was just, I guess associated with the pain and the heartbreak and what have you. But I exuded a lot of energy. I put out a lot of energy that first night that it happened because I couldn't really contain it. And then, of course, I went through the mourning process as I went. So when I went to visit somebody who was a Reiki healer, this had been, I would say, probably 6 months later, 5-6 months later after it. And I was still in mourning for what it's worth. For many reasons. Anyway, so she starts doing the
grieving
work
has
on
no
me.
time.
It really doesn't. Well, anyway, we'll get, I'm going to lose my train of thought here if I go down that path, which I want to. But so what ended up happening is she was going through and she kept stopping on my heart and solar plexus. And I figured, well, maybe that's just where the energy needs to go. I understand that's how that works. She keeps being drawn back there. All right, it's filling up, okay, it feels a little bit better. So after the session, she looks at me, she goes, "What happened to you recently?" I said, "What do you mean?" She goes, "Something very traumatic happened in your life.
Mm-hmm.
Your heart chakra and your solar plexus chakra were both shattered. Other chakras that you had on you were trying to compensate and not spinning either at the speed that they should be, or they were spinning in reverse." She said, "It took me a long time to really get in there and reconstruct it." But that's really interesting if that's something that can happen, that we go through something so emotional that it actually breaks down or degrades our chakra system and the auric field that we have. Have you ever come across anyone with that much damage or anything that could be kind of measured in that way, talking to them?
I think it's semantics, like it's the words that she used, because I've never heard of a shattered chakra per se.
Mm-hmm.
But get down, baby. But what that might mean is, yeah, I could definitely see how something like that could have really just sent your whole system completely a kilter. Yeah, like I don't want to use the word shattered because again, it would be the same thing as somebody saying my chakra stopped. So if it shattered, it wouldn't be there in a sense, right?
I
So
would
to
figure,
me,
right.
it's an energy. It's always with us, and they're discovering more and more chakras as time goes on. But yeah, damage, definitely major damage. I mean, you're anybody's first heartbreak, like you said, everything that happened to you, and she could pick that up energetically. Those are the kind of things I would pick up. Yeah. So I don't know if I would say shattered would be the word I would use, but yes, definitely those are the kinds of things that were going to show up in your chakras. And like you said, you were still in mourning, you're still in grieving for the relationship that happened, and that could be anything. Um, that, and yeah, you would see it in the heart. There's a reason why they call it a heartbreak. I mean, and it feels like your heart is broken. The pain you feel in your chest when you're going through something. That's why I'm saying how powerful our emotions are. Hmm.
No, that's true. And I have to agree with you on that.
Hmm.
It might have been the wording that she was using.
Hmm.
Perhaps that's the way her filter perceived it. Maybe in her head, she saw something that was shattered, and that's her indication that that's a place that needs attention and so forth. Again, how it appeared to her, which is why I thought it was so interesting. I've been waiting for many years to ask somebody if they've ever come across that before, because even since then, I haven't.
You know what I'm feeling though, and I keep hearing from Spirit to mention this, that it's so important after we have a relationship of any kind of significance, and especially one to that significance, is afterwards you got to really baby yourself and give yourself time to start the healing process. But eventually, it's really important to do things, I think, like recall our energy that doesn't belong, because
Hmm.
when we're that entwined, our energy is entwined, right? And then you return to sender what doesn't belong to you. There's things like cord cutting. Some people don't believe in cord
I've done
cutting.
it.
I do. I
I've
believe in
done it.
cord cutting wholeheartedly, because
That's it.
yeah, because we develop energetic ties to everything and everybody that we connect with, and some people more than others. Like I'm seeing, like this relationship you had, it would have been like a tree trunk this big, the energetic cord, right?
Hmm.
So I don't know if maybe that's what she was picking up, was so shattered. That would make more sense to me, because to me a chakra is an energy life center, and they're always spinning.
I would agree with you on that, especially today when I know a lot more than I did back then.
Hmm.
Just a quick note on this cord cutting business.
Hmm.
I've done it before myself, and I could
Hmm.
feel it wasn't immediate, actually, the
Hmm.
difference. Now, I did it with that person. I've done it with probably
Hmm.
two other people
Yeah.
that I've had to do that with, because what happens is sometimes you still feel the energy being drawn out of you, and
Hmm.
you're
You
walking
do.
around trying to heal yourself, and they'll still taking it, and it's unconscious,
Hmm.
and that's just what feeds
Or
in. So
somebody stays with you constantly, like you can't stop thinking about them. Like that'll
that
happen.
happens too. Oh, that'll
Or
definitely happen.
there's a cord between you. Or the other thing that sometimes can happen, I haven't seen it a lot, but it will happen. Say they've done some cord cutting and there's somebody you really just want to cut that cord with. They're not good for you. Maybe you haven't even talked to them in a couple months, but it's time to cut the cord. And then all of a sudden they'll call you after you've cut the cord, but they don't know why they've called you. because they don't understand about the energetic cord,
They
right?
don't.
But they feel something's missing.
Something's different. Something's different. No, you're absolutely right about that. And in two experiences, I actually experienced just what you said. It wasn't immediate, but it came about. And when you look at this person after, you don't have the same connection. It's just really strange, and it's night and day. Now, some of these people out there in the chat, I'm sure, are asking themselves, how the hell do you cut this cord? Where's the cord? What are they talking about? This is it's an etheric, energetic string. Okay.
You're going to use your mind, your imagination again.
Use your mind. Even Carlos Castaneda had mentioned something about this in the way of sexual encounters, which is actually a lot more impactful. That one's a more difficult cord to cut, but it's necessary. But that being said, yeah, there's this, literally you close your eyes and you can see right below your navel, there is this cord. For me, that's where it was. It was coming out and literally just snaking right over to the other person. Now, when you see this cord, which for me, it looked like a whitish, bluish, sort of translucent material. I don't even know what it was because it's more of etheric. You're seeing it within your mind's eye. I literally pretended like I had scissors and cut the damn thing like an umbilical cord. I sawed through it.
Different.
And that's how I did it. So how did you do yours?
So what I do, because I tell people to sense, feel, or imagine, because not everybody is visual. Okay. So just keeping that knowledge that it's still there, like you're very visual, and that would be how somebody I might work with. Because when I first got exposed to this, it was somebody that came locally to our house with the paranormal stuff. I didn't know about any of this stuff. She said I had so many cords attached to me that she could see. She said it would take her 48 hours to cut them off. And I'm going like, what the heck is this? Like, what are you talking about? Like, that's how I found out about it. So what I do with people is I get them maybe to think about the person that they want to cut that cord with. Okay. So you're thinking about that person, and then close your eyes. Some people like to use a knife. Some people like to use imaginary hands, like breaking it, ripping it, or cutting it, whatever it may be. And then, what I found for me was typical cord cutting didn't work. So the woman that had told me about this actually told me to imagine energetic hands. So sometimes I'll share this with people.
Oh, okay.
To imagine a pair of hands, if you will, just breaking a cord. And then I remember saying to her, because I'm so literal, right? Like, well, what do I do with it after? She goes, just imagine a little black hole right in front of you, she said, and fill it up with a bunch of white light. Imagine you're just throwing all kinds of white light in there. So when you're done with the cord, toss it in the basket. So that's what we did. But afterwards, the other thing that I like to help people do, okay, so you don't even have to imagine, because sometimes it's hard for people to imagine this cord or see it, right?
Sure, I could see that.
It's almost like going back to childhood, imaginary. So you're going to imagine this cord, whatever way you want to do, you're going to break it, right? Then you're going to see that it's open, right? Because it is open. So part of what you can do, and angels aren't denominational, they're not anything to do with religion, but then you can call in another one that's really great is Archangel Michael.
That's my guy.
I love Archangel Michael too. Or there's Archangel Gabriel, Raphael. Raphael's a good healer. Whoever you feel, or even your guides. If you don't know who you want to call in, ask your guides to come in, because you always have guides, whether you believe in them or not. They are there with you, and ask them to come in and heal where you've cut. You can use light if you want, or you can just ask them. If you're not able to picture it and you're new at it, ask them to heal where you've cut between you and the person.
And for those of you out there listening right now, and you're thinking, well, that's a little bit of effort. Why do I necessarily have to do that? It's really woo. I mean, these are practices that you can use in your life. And I guarantee you that if you try to play with some of these, most of you will feel a pretty immediate effect, because there is something behind this, in terms of the method and what the achieved result may or may not be. And I'm like Lorilei here, I'm speaking from experience in kind of playing with these, and I'm a very skeptical dude. I know that some of you guys probably don't realize that because of the information that I present and my opinions, but believe me, I'm very skeptical when it comes to certain things. So, well, listen, unfortunately, we're out of time here, and I'd love to keep going with you. So maybe if we can do this, we would do a part 2, and we get into it. I'd love to talk to you about spiritual guides in respect to
Oh, I'd love to.
extraterrestrials, and whether there's any sort of differentiation between the two. It's a question I've kind of thrown about to a couple people, and I like getting different perspectives on that. But that being said, where can everybody find you? And I know, again, that you're on a show in a half an hour here. If you want to tell everybody where we can go and watch that, that'd be awesome.
Perfect. First of all, thank you for having me. And when I have you on my show, just like you were so kind to do to me, it's always all about you. So you can find me on facebook.com/The Angel Rock. I have 2 groups on there, Paranormal University for all things paranormal. And then I have the Angel Rocker Tribe for a lot of the more woo-woo things we were talking about tonight. And again, it all had to start with science for me, just so you understand, because if it didn't make some sort of sense with science, like I said, I have a nursing degree. So it's not like I had, and then to go to all this woo-woo stuff. So believe me, when you start looking into it and researching it and then trying it, like you said, it does make a lot of sense. It really does. I know it sounds crazy in the beginning. I've been there. I'm also, Michael's going to be on my show again. I've told him I want to have him on regularly because we have conversations like this and more. On the Angel Rock, it's on Monday nights on United Public Radio Network. Their YouTube channels where you can watch a show, so UPRN or United Public Radio, and it's on from 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Monday nights, and it's live. I have a chat. I love to take questions. I also co-host Tripping the Void on United Public Radio Network on Tuesday nights with Seraphine Hurley. That's an hour later from 10 p.m. to 12 a.m. Now, we have a host chat, and we don't usually have one on Friday nights, but we're having one tonight. So if you can't watch the show, you can listen to it on uprntalkradio.com, or come on over to United Public Radio Network's YouTube channel, and you can watch the show. We have lots of fun. I'm usually the only girl, it seems like, with politics, so this should be interesting tonight.
Now, Lorilei show is great. There's 2 different presentations. She's doing politics one evening, and she's doing paranormal stuff another evening, and she's very versed and comprehensive in both.
That's the host chat. With my show, I should mention quickly, with the Angel Rock, what I say is to cover all aspects of the paranormal. And that means anything that's not covered within the normal realm. Anything from, I like truth seeking versus conspiracy theory, UFOs, angels, energy work, you name it, anything under there. But I say I like to have as my guests, like Michael himself, people, regular everyday people that are doing incredible things with the work that they're doing to make a positive change for humanity. And that's how we like to keep the show. So that's what you'll find on my show.
And it's fantastic. I encourage every one of you to go and check it out, and definitely look into the archives for some of the past shows that she's done. Absolutely fantastic. You guys know that what I promote, I stand behind 100% in Lorilei show, and the network is definitely in that category. So, all right, Lorilei, thank you very much. If you want to hang around for a moment, I'll say my proper goodbyes off camera. All right, very good. Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. Folks, thank you so much for being here tonight. Mr. DB Cooper 77 with the $4.99 super chat or super sticker. I don't know what it is. I'm just learning here. Thank you very much, my friend. I really appreciate that. And everybody else who does donate, moderators and everyone who has joined us this evening, thank you very much for being with us, whether you were in the chat or on the peripherals. I see you in the numbers. So thanks for being here with us, and I appreciate each and every one of you. Let's let you know, as a very quick reminder, Third Phase of Moon did release Countdown to Disclosure on February 16th. You may find that on Amazon Prime and Vimeo. I messed this up last time. Venmo. I'll put it in the link. Okay, I'll put the description down there, and you guys can check that out. Definitely go and watch that. Also, Rich Giordano is on in about 40 minutes on Goof on Radio. Go ahead and check him out on YouTube. It is always a fascinating show. The guy has so much information, and what becomes or starts as opinion is really well informed and backed with all sorts of reasons as to why he thinks the way he does. And I absolutely love his show. But again, thank you very much, guys, for checking us out. I'm sure there'll be something on Third Phase of Moon later on this evening, and we will be back next week with another guest. And in the meantime, I hope all of you have a wonderful rest of your night. Stay inquisitive, stay curious, stay warm. We're working on that third one. That wasn't that great, but we're working on that one. God, I had so much fun. This is something that I've wanted to talk to someone about for a very long time. It's been a long stretch that I've actually sat down and used my crystals for healing. Although every once in a while I'll carry around a piece of malachite or something like that in my pocket, some rose quartz. But anyway, I'm getting off on the tangent here. But thank you all for being with us tonight. We'll see you next time on Dark Hour Paranormal. Good night.